as I'm doing work in energy of plants, how they seem to communicate so much on a soulful level than us humans do. With words being played to one plant that's loving and words that's hateful to another plant. There's quite a few different variations of the same experiment. Some of the experiments have like school kids like saying loving things to one plant and hateful things to the other plant. The other one is got audio on the loop that automatically plays 24/7 to that plant. And over time, like one plant would grow up much healthier and the other one is kind of looking like yellowish and maybe even dying. So I guess some can say with the plants, like there are some variables that leaves a bit more the skeptics to be able to scrutinize over. But some of the more, I guess, controlled experiments I've seen or I've read about, in 1971, there's a book called The Secret Life of Plants by Peter Tompkins and Christopher Bird, where they going to test the plants, whether they got consciousness using a lie detector test. And they first tried to use a needle or dip it in coffee, but that didn't have much of a reaction. So the experimenter looked at, well, what if we burn the leaves, like using fire to burn it? And with that, with these thoughts, even before he went to get a match, before the 1970s, they probably didn't have lighters at the time, but get a match, a bullish curve rapidly appeared on the graph paper. So it triggered a reaction even before he got the match. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So when he came back with a match, he saw that another peak appeared on the curve. It was likely that when the plant saw he was determined to start burning, it got frightened again. If he showed hesitation or reluctance to burn the plants, the reaction recorded by the lie detector test were not so accurate. And when he merely pretended to take action to burn the leaves, the plants had almost no reactions. So the plants was able to distinguish between true intention and just acting, just pretending. So later, when the experimenter and his colleague did experiments around the countries with different instruments and different plants, they observed similar results. They discovered that even if leaves were picked off from a plant and cut into pieces, the same reaction were recorded when these pieces were placed near the lie detector electrodes. Or when a dog or unfriendly person walked into a room, it also created a spike on the lie detector test as well. So all very fascinating stuff. The conclusion, like after years of research, he summarized that plants had a special form of communication, which included an affinity with the plant's kin and with the animals that eat them. Astounded, he found the communication was unaffected by distance. They believed that the plants and the mental and emotional message operate outside time as we perceive it, and outside the electromagnetic spectrum we see. He concluded there was a oneness amongst all living things and the sentience, the capacity to feel, perceive, and experience subjectively. The definitions of conscious being was present in plants and may go down to the molecular, atomic, and even subatomic level. So in summary, this kind of ties into our talk on the Law of One, which is a book that was channeled from this entity called Ra. We talked about the first density is the minerals kingdoms, like rocks and sand and jewels and all these different minerals. The second density of consciousness, it goes to the plants kingdom and the lower animals. And the third density is the higher animal kingdom and humans as well. That's where we are. And we're moving towards fourth and fifth density as we grow in the consciousness. So we talk about evolution. We all started from the first density and evolved towards the higher density being. So we were plants once. And as a plant, after years of research, this person who did the research called Bector, that's his name, he concluded that a lot of the modern science, they say that plants, they communicate with each other through fungi, and fungi got something called the mycelium network, which is underground in the soil. It's like the equivalent of the plant's internet. But what's also interesting is this person, he states what he believes, not what if. He believed that what if the communication is not only just through the mycelium, but it's also like through energy, through the electromagnetic spectrum that outside of that we can see in some sort of like energy wave that is like a dog whistle. We can't hear it, but it's there. What if they can communicate with each other that way as well? That's why it transcends beyond time and space, that in the third density or third dimension, we're limited by time and space, this conundrum. In the fourth dimension or fourth density onwards, we don't have those limitations. So what if plants can somehow talk and communicate beyond that and understands more than what we know? How would they know someone is unfriendly? How would they know someone's intention, whether they're about to burn a leaf or whether they were just acting? There must be more intelligence or higher consciousness, because often we refer to intelligence as the brain or the mind thinking. What if they have a high level of consciousness / awareness than what we actually been taught about? Another interesting experiment, and I think that there's a book called Plants Remember or Plants Memory or something. A team of scientists in France, they wanted to see whether plants have memory. And so what happened is, I think they got a needle and pricked one side of, there's two leaves at the early stage of the plants. They pricked one side and the other side they didn't touch it, and they removed both leaves. So they have no physical history of that plant that was being pricked. As the plants grew, it predominantly grew to one side. Even the flower, it flowered to one side. So that kind of triggered off, what if plants have memory? And there's a lot of other experiments as well. Like one of the experiments talks about when they cut down like in one of the forests, and they track down in the 1940s to 41 to 45 from memory, there's disease within trees in different regions, or the trees wasn't as healthy. And that was during the time of, I think it was the Second World War. And so it was talking about the energy of human and what was going on in this earth. It has an effect on the plants. But let's go back to this particular one called Plants Remember. Since then, scientists have found that certain plants can remember experience of drought, dehydration, cold and heat, excess light, acidic soil, exposure to shortwave radiation, and the simulation of insects eating their leaves. Faced with the same stress again, the plants modify their responses. They might retain more water, become more sensitive to light, or improve their tolerance to salt or cold. In some cases, these memories are even passed on to the next generation. So isn't it interesting that when they put it in a controlled environment, some of the experiments deliberately didn't feed it water for quite some time, and then to track whether they actually retain more water as a plant, they do afterwards. But then there was another follow-up experiment done by a team that was based in Australia. And they did different experiments on plants, and quite a lot of them didn't show the same remarkable memory system. And it is easy to conclude that maybe those early experiments was inaccurate or had certain flaws in it. But they say, what if plants' memory is rare simply because it's better for plants to forget? Having a memory keep track of where the different threats are coming from, or maybe there's a drought coming. It helps, just like we have memory, it helps us, it serves us, but it comes at a cost. Before I share what the research say the cost is, think about it for yourself. Yes, we have beautiful memories of our loved ones, of our beautiful moments, our celebrations, our first love, and our parents giving us a lot of love. Someone saying something nice to us. We win certain awards. We see certain scenic places. But it comes at a cost. What cost does it come from? Is that we keep revisiting the past. And even the future is usually, a lot of the times, is a fear-based projection of the future. I need to plan ahead. Why do we need to plan ahead? Because the future is scary, it's unknown, and we want to control it. And based on the past, we better wear more clothing, we better eat more healthy food, we better lock our doors, we better make more money. The way that we've been conditioned, it makes it challenging for us to live in the present moment. The plants, they just understood by carrying these memories of threats, it comes at a cost of weighing us down. It takes energy to keep these memories. Since we don't see memories all that often, maybe plants don't want to remember things all the time. Maybe it's better to put their energies elsewhere. Even when memories do form, they can fade. Another research group has shown, for example, that plants might form an epigenetic memory of soaked stress and pass it along across generations. But if the stress fades, so does the memory. A plant that remembers too much might sacrifice healthy growth to be constantly on guard against drought, food, flood, salt, insects. Better, perhaps, to let those negative experiences go, instead of always preparing for the worst. Let it go. Letting go. What if this is one of the stories that we can learn from plants? One of the ways that we can be more at ease. We've got a mind, and from the mind, it created certain useful things that we enjoy in life. But again, part of growing up / evolution is not going to get us beyond that. And the next step is to be able to consciously use the mind, which is being able to quiet it down and gain clarity from higher consciousness when we choose to.